The vast city of Zithra stretched across the horizon like a living jewel. Towers of silver and crystal shimmered under the light of two suns, their spires reaching far into the sky, as if daring the universe to challenge the empire below. This was the seat of the greatest alien civilization in the known galaxy, ruled by the formidable alien queen Lysara. Her presence alone commanded respect, her tall, elegant frame exuding power and authority. Her people revered her, yet even she felt a quiet longing, a desire for a companion who could match not just her intellect and strength, but her vision for the future. It was for that reason that she had chosen Kale, a human from a distant, long-forgotten world called Earth. Humanity was considered fragile by the standards of the Zitharan Empire, soft, short-lived, and technologically backward compared to their highly evolved species. Aliens whispered that the Queen's choice was reckless, even foolish. Yet Lysara had seen something in him, something the alien elite could not understand. Calm courage, unshakable curiosity, and a mind capable of seeing solutions where others only saw obstacles. Kale arrived in Zithra not as a conquering hero or a diplomat, but as a simple man with sharp eyes and a quiet determination. He looked around the city with wide-eyed fascination, marveling at the gleaming towers, the flying transports crisscrossing the sky, and the citizens moving with an efficiency and grace that only a society perfected over millennia could achieve. Despite the grandeur, he remained composed. He understood that appearances could be deceiving, and he was determined not to be overwhelmed by them. Lysara met him at the palace's central hall, a place so vast that Kale felt as if he were standing inside a star. The floor glowed softly beneath their feet, showing projections of distant galaxies. Lysara's eyes, sharp and calculating, studied him carefully. The humans she had observed before were bold but reckless, clever but fragile. Kale, however, carried a quiet confidence, an inner strength that did not rely on physical prowess but on the mind and spirit. "Welcome to Zithra," she said, her voice clear and commanding, yet carrying a subtle warmth that few had ever heard. Kale bowed respectfully, feeling the weight of the entire court watching him. "I am honored, Your Majesty," he replied, his voice steady. The court murmured in disbelief. How could the queen of the Zitharan Empire, unmatched in power, marry someone so ordinary? The whispers followed Kale everywhere he went. Servants, officials, and even the queen's advisors kept questioning him silently. But Kale did not falter. He knew that every glance, every whisper was an opportunity to prove himself in a way the aliens could not predict. In the following days, Kale was introduced to the vast complexities of Zitharan society. He observed their council meetings, where the most brilliant minds debated strategies for trade, defense, and diplomacy. He studied their technology, which seemed centuries ahead of human understanding. But rather than being intimidated, Kale approached each challenge with curiosity. He asked questions that others had never considered, noticing details the Zitharans had overlooked. Slowly, some began to recognize his value. Lysara found herself both intrigued and unsettled. She had expected Kale to be a charming companion, perhaps clever in minor ways, but nothing more. Yet every day revealed layers of his intellect that defied the prejudices of her people. He suggested minor improvements to energy systems, adjustments to communication protocols, and even offered solutions to social disputes that had persisted for decades. The subtlety and insight of his ideas left even the wisest council members quietly impressed. Kale also displayed something the aliens rarely understood: empathy. While Zitharans were logical and disciplined, they often overlooked emotional nuance, believing feelings to be inefficient. Kale, however, treated everyone with respect, understanding, and patience. When a young Zitharan noble expressed frustration at a failed experiment, Kale did not dismiss it as a minor mistake. He guided the child with encouragement and practical advice. The nobles were surprised to see a human not only succeed in technical matters, but also in winning hearts. One evening, Lysara took Kale to the palace's observation deck. From there, one could see the entire city, its lights twinkling like a sea of stars, and beyond it, the vast expanse of the galaxy. The wind was crisp, carrying scents unfamiliar to human senses, but pleasant all the same. Lysara stood beside him, silent for a long moment. "You adapt quickly," she said finally. "I expected resistance, hesitation, perhaps fear. Instead, I see only observation and understanding. Most humans would crumble here. On my world, we learned that survival is not always about strength, but about thinking, adapting, and sometimes daring to see the world differently." In a world where power was measured by size, speed, and mental projection, Kale's strength was subtle yet formidable. As the days passed, Kale became more integrated into the life of the court. He observed training drills, not to compete physically, but to understand the principles behind them. He spoke with strategists about defense simulations, offering insight into human approaches to problem-solving. He even engaged in philosophical discussions with scholars, presenting ideas about morality, cooperation, and innovation that challenged the Zitharan way of thinking. The court slowly began to shift their perception. Murmurs of doubt were replaced with cautious respect. Officials who once sneered at his humanity now found themselves consulting him. Lysara, watching these changes, realized that Kale's true power was emerging quietly, a force that did not demand attention but earned it through results and understanding. Yet not all were convinced. Some nobles remained skeptical, convinced that no human could truly stand alongside their queen. They whispered that Kale's rise was temporary, a trick of circumstance rather than true ability. But Kale remained undeterred. He understood that winning respect required patience, consistency, and demonstrating value without arrogance. One afternoon, the city experienced a sudden energy disruption. Communications faltered, and the protective energy shields surrounding the palace flickered. Panic began to ripple through the staff and nobles. Lysara moved swiftly, but even she could not immediately identify the source of the problem. Kale, observing calmly, approached the main control panel. He examined the complex systems, tracing patterns the aliens had overlooked. Within moments, he identified a minor misalignment in the energy conduit, a flaw that could have escalated into a catastrophic failure if left uncorrected. With careful precision, he corrected the problem, restoring stability. The shields hummed back to life and communications resumed. A hush fell over the room. The courtiers stared at Kale, their earlier skepticism fading into awe. Lysara's eyes shone with a mixture of pride and astonishment. "You are more capable than I imagined," she said softly. Kale simply nodded, his expression humble. That evening, the queen held a private dinner for him in the palace's central atrium. The room was bathed in soft golden light, the city's skyline glowing through massive glass walls. Lysara spoke not as a ruler but as a partner. "I knew humans had potential," she said, "but I did not anticipate the depth of your mind. You think differently, see patterns that my people overlook, and act decisively when others hesitate. That is all I can promise." The first part of their life together concluded not with grand battles or displays of power, but with subtle recognition of intellect, courage, and empathy. Kale's human perspective had begun to plant seeds of change, challenging centuries of alien assumptions. And while the galaxy beyond Zithara remained vast and full of unknown threats, Lysara knew that with Kale at her side, the Empire had gained an ally of remarkable and unpredictable potential. In the quiet of the night, as they looked out over the sparkling city, Lysara allowed herself a rare smile. Her people might have questioned her choice, but she had seen something that no one else could, a human whose true power was only just beginning to emerge. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the coming days would reveal just how extraordinary he truly was. The morning sun rose over Zithara, painting the city in shades of gold and silver. The air was crisp and filled with the soft hum of floating transports gliding between the towers. Life in the alien capital seemed perfect, almost too perfect, yet beneath the calm surface, tensions were stirring. Far from Zithara, an enemy fleet moved quietly through the void of space, their intent clear, to challenge the might of the Zitharan Empire. Kale awoke that day with a sense of anticipation rather than fear. He had learned quickly that being human in a world of superior aliens was not about proving strength in battle, but about understanding and adapting. The Queen had entrusted him with more than just companionship. She had given him access to her council and her people. Now, he faced his first true test. The council chamber was massive, a dome of transparent crystal that allowed light from Zithara's twin suns to fill the room. Alien generals, strategists, and diplomats had already gathered, their expressions a mixture of confidence and skepticism. Kale entered quietly, nodding politely to the officials. Many of them still questioned the wisdom of including a human in their deliberations, but the Queen's presence beside him silenced immediate objections. Lysara rose from her throne, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "The enemy approaches our borders. We must prepare for their attack. I want strategies, not assumptions. Kale, you will advise us as well." The human's role in planning a defense was unprecedented. and some considered it absurd. Kale, however, remained calm. He had spent hours studying Zitharan tactical simulations, learning their patterns, their reliance on technology, and their approach to warfare. He had noticed inefficiencies, habits that were predictable to an intelligent observer, and he intended to use them to the Empire's advantage. The generals presented their plans first. They proposed deploying the fleet in strict formations, relying on the superior speed and firepower of their ships. Their calculations were precise, their confidence unshakable. Yet Kale saw an opening where none of the aliens had noticed. He stepped forward, his voice steady but commanding. "Your formations assume the enemy will act logically," he said. "Humans, and perhaps other species, do not always act logically. If we position all our forces in predictable patterns, they can exploit them. We need flexibility, deception, and layered defenses. Instead of one line, we can create zones that mislead them and force them to waste resources." Kale continued, explaining his plan in simple terms. Smaller squads acting independently, sensors disguised as empty space, and decoy signals to confuse enemy targeting. He suggested using unconventional routes for reinforcements, including hidden asteroid fields and energy anomalies to mask movements. Lysara watched him intently, noting the calm confidence in his eyes. The court was skeptical, but she knew better than to dismiss insight. Kale's suggestions were unconventional, yes, but they were logical in a way that even seasoned strategists had overlooked. "Implement his plan immediately," she commanded. The room erupted in murmurs, but no one dared to disobey her. Kale moved with quiet authority, directing teams, adjusting simulations, and coordinating communication between the fleet and planetary defenses. His mind worked like a finely tuned instrument, balancing multiple variables, anticipating outcomes, and correcting errors before they could arise. When the first wave of enemy ships appeared on Zitharan sensors, the effectiveness of Kale's plan became clear. As the enemy approached in aggressive formation, they encountered zones of resistance that were unexpected. Decoy signals drew them away from critical points, while hidden squadrons attacked from angles they had not anticipated. The alien fleet moved with precision, following Kale's guidance, and yet the enemy found themselves constantly reacting rather than controlling the battle. Generals who had doubted him stared in disbelief. The humans' foresight and creativity had turned what could have been a disastrous confrontation into a carefully managed engagement. Lysara, standing at the command platform, felt a sense of pride that she had never experienced before. Kale's ingenuity was not about brute force, but about seeing connections others had missed, predicting moves before they happened, and creating opportunities where none seemed possible. Despite the victory, Kale knew this was only the beginning. The enemy fleet had retreated, but it was clear they would return with greater numbers. He spent the following hours analyzing their tactics, cross-referencing data with Zitharan intelligence, and proposing enhancements to planetary defenses. Each suggestion was met with initial skepticism, then acceptance as simulations confirmed their effectiveness. The court began to change. Where once they had whispered doubts, they now consulted Kale for advice. Officials began to recognize that his human perspective was valuable precisely because it differed from their own. He did not follow tradition blindly, and that difference gave the Empire a distinct advantage. One day, Kale visited the training grounds where young officers practiced combat maneuvers. He observed their drills carefully, noting how they relied on speed and telekinetic projection but often moved predictably. Approaching the commanding instructor, Kale offered suggestions. "Consider varying the formations," he said. "Use feints and unexpected timing. Force your opponents to think, not just react." The officers adapted to Kale's methods, moving with greater flexibility, learning to anticipate rather than simply follow orders. Even the young cadets began to respect the human who had arrived from a small, distant world and taught them to see beyond their rigid training. Lysara observed these changes with a mixture of pride and curiosity. Each day, Kale's presence reshaped the way her people thought about challenges. He had already turned skepticism into respect, and now he was altering long-held assumptions about strategy, training, and leadership. The Queen realized that his true power was not merely in ideas or intellect. It was in the human way of observing the world differently, of turning perceived weakness into advantage. Even in the quiet moments, Kale's influence was evident. He walked through the palace gardens, speaking with scholars, engineers, and diplomats alike. He listened patiently to their concerns, then offered practical solutions that were simple yet effective. Where the aliens had relied on complex systems and overwhelming resources, Kale suggested small adjustments with outsized impact. His methods were elegant in their simplicity, and slowly the Zitharan elite began to learn from him. Yet Kale did not allow pride to enter his work. He treated every person with respect, acknowledging their expertise while gently guiding them to see new possibilities. In doing so, he built trust, loyalty, and admiration throughout the empire. Even the skeptics began to admit, often in private, that the human was remarkable. The first real test of Kale's emerging power came when a small contingent of enemy raiders attempted to strike a mining colony on the outskirts of Zitharan space. While the generals had considered it a minor threat, Kale treated it as an opportunity to apply his principles. He designed a layered defense, combining deception, rapid response teams, and tactical traps that took advantage of the raiders' predictability. When the enemy arrived, they found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Ships that appeared weak were actually positioned to cut off escape routes. Attack patterns that seemed random were, in reality, carefully coordinated. By the end of the engagement, the raiders were forced to retreat with heavy losses. Reports of the victory reached the capital quickly. Officials praised Kale's ingenuity, and even the most skeptical nobles could not deny his effectiveness. Lysara, however, remained the most impressed. She had seen humans survive in harsh environments, innovate under pressure, and achieve success with limited resources. Yet witnessing Kale orchestrate such a victory within her empire, against enemies who had underestimated him, was extraordinary. That evening, Kale and Lysara met in the private council chamber. The room overlooked the city, its lights twinkling like distant stars. Lysara's expression was thoughtful, tinged with awe. "You act as if danger is a puzzle to solve rather than a threat to fear," she said. "Most would panic, yet you remain calm, seeing solutions where others see only obstacles. Even when the situation seems hopeless, there is always a path forward. Sometimes it is simply hidden until someone takes the time to look." Kale's humanity was not a weakness, it was a strength, a different kind of power, one that was subtle, adaptable, and impossible to predict. As night fell over Zithara, Kale walked through the quiet palace halls, reflecting on the day's events. He had proven himself in small ways, but he knew the real challenges were still ahead. The enemy fleet would return, stronger and more determined. Yet he felt ready. He had learned to trust his mind, his instincts, and the quiet strength that came from being human in a galaxy that often underestimated his species. In the gardens, Lysara watched him from a distance, her thoughts conflicted. She had chosen Kale not for his power, but for his potential. That potential was now unfolding before her eyes, revealing a force that could shape the fate of the Empire. The court may have doubted him, but she had seen his true ability to inspire, innovate, and overcome. The galaxy beyond Zithara was vast, full of dangers and unknowns. Yet Lysara felt a rare certainty. With Kale by her side, the Empire had not just a consort, but a mind capable of turning the impossible into reality. And as the stars shone brightly above the palace, she realized that this human, so small and fragile by alien standards, might just be the key to the Empire's future. The days after the skirmish with the enemy raiders were filled with activity in the Zitharan capital. Kale moved through the palace like a quiet storm, observing, learning, and helping wherever he could. Despite the Empire's incredible technology and the brilliance of its citizens, he had already seen gaps, small details that, if corrected, could make them even stronger. It was during one of these quiet inspections that Kale stumbled upon an old section of the palace archives. The area had long been abandoned, filled with dust-covered crates and holographic files left untouched for centuries. Most Zitharans rarely entered this section, believing it contained little of value. But Kale's curiosity drew him in, his eyes scanning the data panels and old artifacts. Among the forgotten relics, he discovered something remarkable: fragments of human technology from Earth, preserved through time and space. These were devices and systems designed by humans long before their species had spread into the stars, tools that had been lost to history. Kale's heart quickened. This was a chance to access knowledge that Zitharans had never considered, ideas that could supplement their advanced systems in ways no one had imagined. Lysara entered the archives quietly, observing Kale as he examined the devices. "You seem interested," she said, her tone a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Most would dismiss these as relics, useless in a galaxy far beyond Earth." These devices may appear simple, but they contain principles that can enhance your systems dramatically. Carefully, he began to integrate these ancient technologies with the Empire's current systems, making subtle adjustments and testing their limits. The palace was abuzz with speculation. Advisors whispered to one another about the humans' strange methods, unsure whether to be impressed or skeptical. Kale, however, moved with calm focus, guided by logic, intuition, and the quiet confidence that had already earned him respect in the court. After several days of experimentation, Kale had successfully activated a prototype energy field enhancer. This device, when combined with Zitharan shield technology, created a defensive barrier far stronger than anything the Empire had previously developed. He demonstrated it to Lysara in a controlled simulation. The shields expanded, pulsing with vibrant energy, absorbing and redirecting attacks with extraordinary efficiency. Lysara's eyes widened in astonishment. "You have improved our defenses using human relics?" she asked. "I did not realize their potential was so profound." "It is the way humans think, finding solutions where others see none. The principles behind these devices may seem simple, but applied correctly, they can exceed your expectations." At first, many were skeptical, wary of relying on human inventions from a long-lost world. But when simulations showed the effectiveness of Kale's enhancements, skepticism turned to awe. Even the most stubborn officials could not deny the results. The enemy fleet, however, was not idle. Reports indicated they were regrouping, preparing for a larger attack that threatened multiple colonies along Zitharan's space. Lysara called an emergency council, inviting Kale to present his findings and recommendations. Standing before the assembly, Kale explained his plan. "The enemy will strike where they believe we are weakest," he said, "but we can use their assumptions against them. By deploying enhanced shields, mobile energy barriers, and strategic decoys, we can channel their forces into areas where they will be vulnerable. Combined with our fleet's strength, this will give us a decisive advantage." It was clear that Kale's insights had provided an edge they had never considered. Lysara, standing at the forefront, felt a surge of pride. This human she had chosen was revealing not just courage and intellect, but a power that seemed almost magical in its application. Over the next week, Kale worked tirelessly with Zitharan engineers and fleet commanders. They tested energy barriers, recalibrated fleet formations, and devised new strategies that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. The palace hummed with activity as simulations grew more complex, preparing for the impending attack. Kale's influence extended beyond technology and strategy. He observed the morale of the citizens and the fleet, understanding that confidence was as important as equipment. He encouraged pilots, shared insights with soldiers, and reminded everyone that even small adjustments could lead to great victories. His presence alone inspired hope, a feeling that had been rare in the Empire during times of uncertainty. When the enemy fleet finally appeared on sensors, larger and more coordinated than before, Kale's preparations were put to the test. The enemy advanced cautiously, expecting predictable defenses, yet they encountered a series of surprises that forced them into disadvantageous positions. Energy shields flared, decoys misled their targeting systems, and fleets moved with coordination they could not anticipate. Kale, observing from the command platform, remained calm. He monitored every variable, adjusting defenses and communicating with commanders in real time. Each decision he made prevented potential disasters, saving ships and lives. The enemy, frustrated and confused, struggled to adapt to the unpredictable human strategies. Lysara watched from beside him, her usual composure replaced by a rare expression of awe. She had faced countless threats in her reign, yet she had never seen tactics executed with such precision and creativity. The human beside her was not only keeping the Empire safe, but doing so in a way that highlighted the unique strength of his species. By the end of the engagement, the enemy fleet was forced to retreat once more. The victory was decisive, yet it came with no grand displays of brute force. Instead, it was the result of careful planning, ingenuity, and the application of principles the aliens had never considered. The council praised Kale's contributions, and for the first time, some members admitted openly that humanity might possess qualities beyond Zitharan comprehension. After the battle, Lysara took Kale to the observation deck overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting, casting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The city below sparkled like a field of stars, peaceful and secure. "You have done more than I imagined," she said softly. "Not through power, but through thought, courage, and insight. You have changed the way we see humans, Kale. Your influence reaches farther than you know." She had chosen him for potential, but he had surpassed her expectations. The enemy fleet would return, stronger and more determined, but Kale's presence had given the Empire hope and a strategy that no one else could replicate. In the following days, Kale continued to explore the ancient human technologies, discovering even more ways to enhance Zitharan systems. He experimented with energy storage devices, quantum communication methods, and even rudimentary artificial intelligence constructs that could assist in tactical planning. Each discovery was met with excitement and cautious admiration, as the alien scholars realized that centuries-old human inventions could still hold value in a galaxy far advanced beyond their origin. Kale also worked to teach Zitharans the underlying principles behind the technology, showing them how to think creatively, experiment, and innovate. He encouraged the engineers to combine alien and human methods, to break free from assumptions, and to seek new solutions to old problems. Slowly, the Empire began to change, not just in its tools and weapons, but in the way its people approached challenges. Lysara observed all of this with a mixture of pride and wonder. She had ruled for centuries, seen countless advisors and warriors rise and fall, yet none had left an impact like this human. Kale was reshaping the Empire in ways she could never have imagined, proving that strength did not always lie in power or size, but in the mind and spirit. One evening, as the twin suns set and the stars began to shine in the sky, Kale and Lysara walked through the palace gardens. The flowers glowed faintly with bioluminescence, and the air was filled with the soft hum of night insects. "You have changed everything," Lysara said quietly. "The council, the fleet, the scholars, they all see humans differently now. And I see your true power, Kale. It is not just your mind or your inventions, but your courage, your insight, and the way you inspire others to see beyond what they think is possible. The galaxy is full of challenges, and we will face them together. But the lessons we learn now will shape our future, not just for us, but for everyone who depends on this empire." And as the stars twinkled above, she realized that with Kale by her side, the Empire's future was brighter than she had ever dared to imagine. The first true chapter of Kale's power had unfolded. What had started as curiosity and clever thinking had become a demonstration of potential that left even the most experienced aliens in awe. The galaxy beyond Zithara was vast and filled with unknown threats, but Kale had shown that humanity, small, underestimated, and overlooked, could rise to meet challenges that no one else could. The silence of space was broken by the distant hum of engines and the faint glimmer of distant starships moving in formation. Zitharan's sensors had detected the enemy fleet once more, this time larger and more coordinated than any previous assault. Reports indicated they intended a full-scale invasion, striking multiple colonies simultaneously. The stakes were higher than ever, and the entire empire braced itself for the challenge. Kale stood at the command platform in the heart of the capital, Lysara beside him. The twin suns were low in the sky, casting a warm glow across the massive room, reflecting off the countless consoles, holographic displays, and command stations. This was the moment for which Kale's strategies, his studies of ancient human technology, and his guidance had all been preparing the Empire. Lysara's voice cut through the hum of activity. "Kale, the enemy fleet is visible on all sectors. You have the fleet, the shields, and the defenses. What is our first move?" Kale's mind worked quickly, recalling simulations, strategies, and adjustments from the past weeks. His eyes narrowed as he spotted patterns in the enemy's approach. "They will try to draw us into direct confrontation," he said. "Their formation is meant to isolate and overwhelm. If we engage head-on, we risk losing colonies and ships unnecessarily. Instead, we will split our fleet into multiple coordinated zones. Each zone will act semi-independently, using enhanced shields and decoys to mislead them. Our aim is to force them to fight where we are strongest, not where they expect weakness." This strategy required trust in Kale's judgment and flexibility from every captain, qualities Zitharans valued but rarely allowed to vary in practice. Lysara, however, placed her hand on Kale's shoulder, her presence lending authority to his plan. "Execute it," she commanded. "We trust your guidance." Ships moved into zones he had carefully planned, Energy barriers expanded and pulsed with strength beyond what anyone had expected, and decoys projected false signals across multiple sectors. Even the young pilots who had trained under Kale's guidance followed his commands with confidence, knowing their human advisor had already led them through tests and smaller battles. As the enemy fleet entered Zitharan space, Kale observed their reactions closely. Their first move was predictable. They attempted to exploit what they thought was a weak flank, but Kale had anticipated this. A hidden squadron emerged from a nearby asteroid field, cutting off the enemy's advance and redirecting them toward a sector reinforced with enhanced shields. The decoys caused further confusion, splitting their forces in ways they had not expected. Lysara's eyes followed Kale's actions, her expression a mix of awe and pride. She had faced countless wars and threats, yet she had never witnessed strategy executed with such foresight. Kale's genius lay not in the strength of his ships or the power of his technology, but in the human mind behind it, predicting, adjusting, and improvising faster than the enemy could react. The battle intensified. Energy beams streaked across the void, shields flared and pulsed, and the enemy fleet tried to adapt. But every attempt was met with calculated responses from Kale. He coordinated fleets from multiple angles, using enhanced shields to absorb attacks while directing counterattacks with precision. Human ingenuity combined with Zitharan technology created an effect that even the aliens struggled to comprehend. Kale noticed a group of enemy ships attempting to bypass defenses entirely, aiming directly for a heavily populated colony. Without hesitation, he recalibrated energy fields, creating a mobile shield that could move faster than most ships. He guided a squadron of fighters to intercept the attackers, using decoy signals to draw them into a trap. Within moments, the threat was neutralized. The generals who had doubted him earlier now watched in stunned silence. Kale was not simply reacting, he was thinking multiple steps ahead, predicting outcomes and adjusting strategies in real time. The human mind, so often underestimated, had become the central command of the Empire's defense. Lysara leaned close to him. "Your strategy is more than clever, it is brilliant. You anticipate, adapt, and inspire our people to act beyond their limits." Kale moved between consoles, issuing commands, coordinating fleets, and adjusting energy shields. Every decision was precise, every action calculated, yet his approach remained calm, never frantic. Even when enemy ships broke formations and attacked unexpectedly, Kale adapted instantly, guiding Zitharan forces to counter the threat without unnecessary losses. The tide of battle slowly turned. Enemy forces began to retreat, unable to break through the defenses or predict the human-led strategies. Zitharan ships, enhanced with Kale's integration of human technologies, held firm and struck with precision, creating openings that forced the enemy into disadvantageous positions. Lysara observed every moment, realizing that the human beside her had not only defended her empire, but had changed the way her people thought about war. The battle was not won by brute strength or overwhelming numbers, but by intelligence, innovation, and adaptability, the hallmarks of humanity. Finally, the enemy fleet began a full withdrawal. Their formation was broken, their forces depleted, and their morale shattered. Zitharan ships returned to their stations, shields stabilizing and energy systems returning to normal. The battle was over, and the Empire had emerged victorious. The council gathered after the engagement, filled with admiration and disbelief. Generals who had doubted Kale now spoke openly of his genius. Engineers marveled at the integration of ancient human technology with Zitharan systems. Even the scholars admitted that his methods had reshaped their understanding of strategy and defense. Lysara stood before Kale, her expression a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. "You have done what none could have expected," she said, "not through sheer power, but through thought, insight, and courage. You have shown the Empire that humans are not to be underestimated." Citizens, soldiers, and officials honored the victory, yet Kale remained quietly in the background, ensuring that the systems were stable and that no hidden threats remained. Despite the accolades, he understood that vigilance and preparation were just as important as victory itself. In the quiet of the observation deck, Kale and Lysara stood together, looking out over the city below. The twin suns had set, leaving a canopy of stars, each one a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy and the challenges still to come. "You have changed everything, Kale," Lysara said softly. "The council, the fleet, and even my people, they see humans differently now." You have proven that strength is not only measured by power or size, but by the mind, by courage, and by creativity. You are more than a consort, Kale. You are a partner, a strategist, and a symbol of what humanity can achieve. The Empire is safer, stronger, and wiser because of you. Scholars sought his advice, generals requested his guidance, and citizens whispered admiration for the human who had changed the course of history. Yet Kale remained humble, focused on preparation and improvement. He continued to study, explore, and innovate, knowing that the galaxy was vast, full of dangers and unknown challenges. The enemy fleet would return, perhaps with even greater force, but Kale's mind, ingenuity, and courage had already proven to be a decisive advantage. As he walked through the palace gardens one evening, Lysara joined him. The flowers glowed softly, casting gentle light across the paths, and the night air was filled with the quiet hum of nocturnal life. "You have done the impossible," Lysara said quietly. "And yet I know this is only the beginning. There are greater threats ahead, and you will face them with the same courage and insight. I have no doubt. Humans may be small by your standards, but we can think, adapt, and overcome in ways no one expects. The Empire owes you more than it can express." The ultimate test had been faced, and humanity had proven that even the most underestimated species could rise to meet the impossible. The stars above Zithara shone brightly, reflecting the light of victory, innovation, and hope. And as the Empire celebrated its survival, Kale knew that this victory was only a glimpse of the potential that still lay ahead, both for himself and for humanity. The victory against the enemy fleet had left the Zitharan Empire stronger, yet Kale knew that the true measure of power was not in battles won, but in the lessons learned and the stability maintained. The Empire had seen firsthand the potential of human ingenuity, and Kale's strategies had proven that even a species once underestimated could shape the fate of worlds. The palace was alive with activity, not just in preparation for defense, but in the transformation of the Empire itself. Scholars, engineers, and strategists eagerly consulted Kale, seeking his perspective on systems, training, and innovation. The young cadets, once skeptical of a human advisor, now followed his guidance with enthusiasm. Even the seasoned generals and officials who had doubted him in the past openly acknowledged his contributions. Kale had become more than a consort. He had become a symbol of hope, a bridge between human ingenuity and Zitharan excellence. Lysara watched him closely, her admiration deepening each day. She had chosen him for qualities others could not see, and now the Empire had witnessed what she already knew. Kale's strength was subtle but profound. It lay not in raw power, but in creativity, courage, and the ability to inspire. He had reshaped not only their defenses but their perception of humanity itself. One morning, Kale was called to a council meeting to discuss long-term strategies for the Empire's security and prosperity. The room was filled with the Empire's most influential figures, including military leaders, scientists, and diplomats. Normally, a human in this position would be ridiculed or dismissed, but Kale entered with confidence, his calm demeanor commanding attention. "Human ingenuity has shown us that adaptability is as important as strength," he began. "The galaxy is vast, full of unknown challenges. We must not rely solely on our current technologies or traditions. By combining the best of human problem-solving with Zitharan advancements, we can prepare for threats we cannot yet imagine and ensure the safety and prosperity of the Empire." Each proposal was practical, backed by simulations and calculations, yet also innovative in ways that pushed Zitharan thinking beyond its traditional limits. Some council members initially hesitated, but Kale patiently explained each concept, showing how minor adjustments could yield major improvements. Lysara observed quietly, proud to see her human partner take a leading role in shaping the Empire's future. Even those who had been skeptical were visibly impressed, and by the end of the meeting, there was unanimous support for Kale's initiatives. As the days turned into weeks, Kale continued to work tirelessly. He helped implement new technologies, train fleets, and mentor the next generation of leaders. The Empire began to flourish in ways it had not before, with citizens and officials alike embracing the human approach of innovation, adaptability, and cooperation. Kale had demonstrated that leadership was not about dominance or hierarchy, but about understanding, guiding, and empowering others. One afternoon, Lysara invited Kale to a private chamber overlooking the central city. The skyline shimmered under the light of the twin suns, the towers reflecting a golden hue across the streets below. Citizens moved confidently through the city, their expressions reflecting pride and hope. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "The council, the fleets, the scholars, they all see humans differently now. And I see your true power, Kale, not just in strategy or innovation, but in the way you inspire others, in the way you shape the empire. My role is to help them see possibilities they might overlook, to combine our strengths. Together, humans and Zitherans can achieve more than either of us could alone." The empire's expansion and improvement continued, with Kale's influence touching every corner. He introduced new methods for energy management, resource allocation, and defensive planning, always blending human principles with Zitharan technology. Entire fleets were upgraded, colonies fortified, and trade networks strengthened, all while maintaining efficiency and security. The empire had entered a golden age, not through conquest, but through innovation and cooperation. Citizens began to look to Kale as a figure of inspiration. He visited colonies personally, observing conditions, listening to concerns, and offering practical solutions. Where humans were once considered weak or naive, Kale's presence demonstrated the opposite: courage, intelligence, and the ability to inspire change. Children who once doubted humanity's place in the galaxy now dreamed of one day contributing to the Empire's advancement, inspired by the human who had earned the respect of an entire civilization. Lysara observed these changes with a deep sense of fulfillment. She had chosen Kale not for power or status, but for the qualities that could never be measured by strength alone. His influence had brought the Empire closer, fostered cooperation, and reshaped attitudes toward humanity. She understood now that his true power lay in his ability to reveal potential, both in himself and in those around him. As the Empire celebrated a decade of peace and progress following the final battle, Kale and Lysara walked together along the palace gardens. Bioluminescent flowers glowed softly, casting gentle light on their path. The air was calm, filled with the scent of the night blooms, and the stars shone brilliantly above. "You have done more than I ever imagined," Lysara said. "Your guidance has reshaped the Empire. Our people see humans differently, and the galaxy will never underestimate them again. I cannot thank you enough." "The thanks belong to everyone who embraced change, who adapted, and who worked alongside me. Progress is never the result of one mind alone, even if it guides the way. Humanity has potential, yes, but so do your people. Together, we have achieved this. The Empire owes you more than it can express. You have unveiled a power that transcends species, Kale, the power to inspire, to innovate, and to transform the impossible into reality. But with trust, cooperation, and understanding, there is no limit to what we can achieve. Humanity has only begun to show what it can do. The Empire is safer, stronger, and wiser because of you." Scholars studied Kale's methods, engineers improved upon his integrations, and leaders learned to think in ways that balanced logic with creativity. Humanity's influence spread through the Empire quietly, yet profoundly, transforming attitudes and approaches across every sector. One evening, as Kale walked through the palace corridors, he paused to observe young cadets practicing strategy simulations. He saw determination in their eyes, creativity in their movements, and a willingness to embrace new ideas. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel pride, not in victory or recognition, but in the knowledge that the seeds of change he had planted were growing. Lysara joined him silently, watching the cadets. "You have done more than fight battles," she said softly. "You have shaped minds, inspired courage, and shown the galaxy that humans can rise to greatness. Your legacy will last far beyond this generation. It belongs to everyone who dared to think differently, who adapted, and who chose to see potential where others saw limits. Together, we have achieved this." The Empire had survived, thrived, and transformed, guided in part by a human whose courage, insight, and ingenuity had revealed truths long overlooked. Kale had proven that strength was not always visible, power did not always roar, and greatness could come from the most unexpected places. Lysara, standing beside him, knew the truth. The human she had married had unveiled his true power, not through brute force or domination, but through mind, spirit, and heart. The Empire had been changed forever, and the galaxy itself had glimpsed the potential of humanity. In the quiet of the palace gardens, under the glow of bioluminescent flowers and the endless stars above, Kale and Lysara stood together, partners in leadership, allies in vision, and symbols of unity between two worlds. The future was vast, full of unknown challenges, yet filled with hope. And Kale, the human who had once been underestimated, had shown that even the smallest spark could ignite a light that reached across the stars. The Empire had entered a golden age. The citizens celebrated innovation, cooperation, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. Kale's influence had shown that humanity, though once considered weak and fragile, could rise to meet the impossible and inspire greatness in others. The galaxy, vast and infinite, was no longer a place to fear, but a canvas for potential, guided by ingenuity, courage, and vision. As the twin suns set once more over Zithra, Kale felt a quiet satisfaction. He had fulfilled his purpose not through might, but through thought, action, and inspiration. Humanity had been revealed as more than a species. It was a force capable of reshaping civilizations, guiding empires, and leaving a legacy that would endure for generations. And Lasara, the alien queen, knew that choosing him had been the single greatest decision of her reign. Together, they had proven that the underestimated, the overlooked, and the seemingly fragile could achieve greatness beyond imagination. The Empire was safe, thriving, and united. The stars above bore witness to a new era, one shaped by courage, ingenuity, and the undeniable power of a human mind.